Right, in this episode, we are going to crack open the book to Chapter 2. So, Chapter 2, we're going to learn about the line command, some templates, and the properties palette, and a few other things. So, I'm going to go over in this video, exercise 2-1. And so, that'll start on page 2-1. So, let's get started. So it says to click down on this menu right here, open Architectural Imperial Drawing, or not drawing, template. It's DWT for drawing template. Click on that. And we're in paper space, so we need to jump into model space. And this is the architectural D sheet. All right, so the line command. Let's go over the line command real quick. So line command is the letter L, the keyboard command. It's also right here, but I like to use the keyboards. The commands are quicker when you are drafting, and you stay focused. Instead of having to go up here and looking for an icon and reading for something, eventually the keyboard commands become second nature, and you stay focused on your drafting. And how the line command works, type the letter L, and you can see with any command, if you start spelling what you want, it will bring the command up. If I want to enter the command, hit spacebar, and now I'm in the command, and it's telling me right there in the middle of the screen, specify first point. Now I can specify in the origin. The origin is 0, 0, 0. And look at that. Origin is right over here. And I can draw this line any way I want. I'm just, I just left click or entered the coordinates, and I could start from there. I can tell you this: I've been drafting for a while, and I don't use coordinates that very often. They were useful, and they still are useful to some. But in a couple firms that I work for, I hardly use the origin, and I hardly use coordinates. I can specify the length, and when I typed that 0, 0, 0, that was me entering coordinates. I don't need to do that anymore. I can specify actual lengths. And if you notice down here, here is ortho mode and polar tracking. Let's just click on polar tracking, and AutoCAD helps you draw lines. And if you noticed, I am drawing this 5 foot 10, 7 and 16 inches, 16th inches at a 30-degree angle if I was to left click right here. And you can see from my cursor there's an extended green dashed line. That's AutoCAD trying to help you, letting you know you're at 30 degrees, or you're at 15, or you're at 45. Anyway, the reason why I'm showing you this is because you can also utilize that information. And so let's just make this an even 10 feet. Hit enter. And it is still connected to that end point of that line. And so, again, this is AutoCAD trying to help you out. It's assuming that this might be some sort of a continuous outline of some sort of two-dimensional geometry. And if I want to get out of this command, I could just hit escape and get out of the command. Inversely, if I want to get back into the command, I can type the letter L, hit the space bar, or there's a shortcut, hit the space bar, and it'll take you back into the last command that you were in. And notice how there's that box right there, and then now it just said endpoint. that is your O-snap. We'll get into O-snap in another video. Right now, we're just going to focus on drawing lines. And so I want to draw another line, and I want to show you how, to draw in feet. So let's just draw 3 feet, 10 inches. And let's just say I want 3/4 of an inch. Hit the dash, 3/4, and there you go. And if I want to double check that, I can check that right here in the properties palette. Let's just say if this properties palette wasn't up, I can highlight any line, right click, go to properties, and this properties palette will come up. And if you notice, this tells me the length of the line right here. 3 feet, 10 inch, 3/4 of, or 10 3/4 of an inch. And so, one more thing about the line command. So not only can I specify 3 feet, 10 inches, and let's put 7/8. If I hit tab, this is part of a dynamic command that AutoCAD has. If I hit tab, you'll see to the right there is a 0 with 0 degrees, and now I'm on there. I can type in 33 degrees and hit enter. And so I drew the line at the specified length, 10 feet, I'm sorry, 3 feet, 10 and 7/8 of an inch at a 33 degree angle. And you see the angle right here. So all that information is stored within the program. You can identify what you did in case you lose your train of thought or get called somewhere. And that is the line command. And so we went over to properties, palettes. Let's go back to properties palette. The properties palette is it shows different layers. You can change the color if, let's just say, I am creating other lines to help me draft the lines that I want to keep. We call those construction lines. So for example, if I want to draw a line here to here from this midpoint, and I want to keep this little intersection but get rid of this top part, I can do that. And let's just say I needed other pieces of information, but I didn't need this. And or I need this, but I don't need it. I need to delete it later. I can change the color to indicate, to give myself a visual of what I need to delete later. Typically, I make a layer, and I put every construction line that helps me draft on that layer, so I know to erase it later. I also make sure that when I do create that layer, we'll talk about layers later, they're right here, and we'll talk about how helpful they are. If I accidentally forget a line, it doesn't print out. So I put it on a layer to where it's definitely noticeable that I need to either delete it or ensure that it's not going to get printed out. Other information that you see, it tells you what scale you're drawing in the tools palette. Tells you, I got to select something. Like this one, tells me the angle, the length, the line type. There's various line types. Right now we don't have very many, but there's other line types that are readily available. In fact, let me open a file to show you just that. So there's a line type for wall. and this line type is done by layers. So you can set up your layers to create a particular line that you're going to use for a wall. And this is a continuous line. There's other lines that we use in architecture, and engineers use it as well, that indicate different things, like hidden lines. Let me see if I can put this on a layer that has a hidden line. Or I could just change it to hidden. And if I zoom in, you can see that it is now a dashed line. And hidden lines indicate that there's something that is underneath or behind something, and as a drafter, you will get to know these different line types. Line weights deals with the thickness of lines, and so the thicker lines, typically you want your walls to be a pretty thick line, your text pretty thick and vivid. When you print this on a bond sheet of paper, there's certain things that you want to stand out, and there's certain things that you really don't want to stand out. So like this cabinetry here, because if everything really stood out, things are harder to read. But if this was like a like a gray, and this was a lighter gray, and everything in purple was a lighter gray, and everything in green was a medium gray, you can see variation, and that contrast helps the mind process information quickly. And this is why we have layers. This is why we control our line types and line weights. We'll eventually get into that in more detail in another video. And so I'm just trying to give you a heads up of what to come. All right, so if you turn to page 2-8, we draw everything to full scale. So that was just an example. So annotation scale is right here. I know it also says it in the properties, but that's a little different. That's talking about one particular line. This is talking about the whole drawing. So when we deal with the whole drawing, a 1-to-1 scale is the ratio that engineers use, and that's correct as well. But architects use 1 foot is equal to 1 foot, and so I typically use that. And now our drawing is in full scale. And the reason why we do it in full scale is so there's no calculations needed. I can go over here and jump into here and create a viewport. We'll get into this later. And we can make this a viewport, and we can look into this, and within this viewport we can scale down the drawings. I don't know what's going on right now with my viewport. There we go. There we go. There's my viewport, and this is a window into my model space. And we use viewports to organize our for our blueprints, in I guess layman's terms. But these are our construction documents, and we don't necessarily need this drawing that big. And what I can do is I can find the scale of this and change it. I can change the annotation scale of this to, let's say, 1/4 of an inch. Let's just say I wanted it to be, for every 1 inch is equal to 1 foot. And so that's why we draw everything in full scale, because we can control how it's presented in paper space when we go over to here with viewports. Right. So I showed you ortho. I'm sorry, polar tracking. Polar tracking is right here. Ortho is right here. These are important, and they help you draft in such a way to where it tells you, whatever, if you need angle increments at 30 or 15 degrees, I typically like to use this, or you can have 5, 10, 15, 20, 5 degree increments, and all I did was right click right here on polar tracking, and now when I go and draw a line, you'll see that green extended dashed line at every 5 increments. And that's kind of annoying for me, so I'm going to go back to what I like. So that is polar tracking, and that'll help you with drawing floor plans, elevations, and roofs and stuff like that. That's very useful. But drawing floor plans, I find that ortho mode is the best mode. That I know it says F8, or you could hit Control L, or on a Mac you could hit Command L. And now I'm in ortho mode. So line, oop. And ortho just means 90 degrees. I can only draw lines in 90 degrees. And if you're drafting a floor plan and there's nothing but rectangles, well, you only need 90-degree increments. You don't need 30 or 15 degrees. And so this is very useful, and it also ensures that, with polar, it helps you. And I've drawn floor plans where I used polar, and some of my field measurements weren't quite adding up. And when I went to go check and see why some of my line work wasn't connecting when it should have been, there was a little variation in degrees in terms of drawing lines. Where in ortho mode, it only does things in 90-degree increments. So it is 0, 90, 180, and all the way around. And when I draw floor plans, I like to use, or straight lines, perpendicular lines, I like to use ortho to give me a sense of security that with 1000% assurance that this is going to be perpendicular and not half a degree off and throw off my entire floor plan. I've had to redraw a floor plan once, and I just decided never again. And so that's polar tracking, and that is ortho, and that is on page 2-8, 2-9. All right, and so now we'll get into drawing other lines. So we need to draw a line that is 1/8 of an inch, and another line at 600 feet. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these. So line, go, and I'm just going to draw anywhere and just type in 600 feet, enter, draw another line, 1/8 of an inch, and there you have it. So now you know how to draw in feet and inches with fractions. Let's get into drawing shapes. Oh, sorry, we skipped some information on 2-7. And so let me backtrack. So it wants us to draw a line that's 5 feet 6. So I could do 5 feet 6 inches, hit enter. That's one way to do it. I could also draw another line, same length, and 5.5 feet. Because 0.5 is a decimal for half, and I know half of a foot is 6 inches. And not that you have to memorize conversions, but if you know the conversions, you can use a decimal in place of a fraction. And that's okay. So I need to draw another one in 3 feet. I can also just do this in inches because I know the conversion. 3 feet is 36 inches. Oh, I'm in Ortho. I need to get out of it. There we go. Out of it. Oh, also with lines, there's grips. So you can change the size of a line. Just left click on the grip and drag. And there you have it. So now let's, sorry about jumping back and forth. So that was 2-7, and we kind of skipped to 2-8, 2-9 for polar, and drawing everything to full scale and Y. We also drew the 600 line on page 2-10, and let's go over to drawing shapes, rectangle and circle. Alright, so drawing a rectangle. So the command for rectangle, and then again, when you want to get out of any command, I always make sure that before I start any command, I hit escape to make sure that like I'm in neutral if I'm sitting at a stop sign and I'm driving a car with a manual transmission. Throw it in neutral, and then I disengage the software from any commands before I jump into a new command. And so, drawing a rectangle, the keyboard command is REC. You'll have to specify one point, so I left click anywhere arbitrarily, and I can drag and drop. I'm going to go ahead and do that again. Oops. REC. Or I can specify particular lengths and widths. And so I'm going to enter 3 feet, 10 and 7/8 of an inch. Oops, I accidentally hit enter. I was supposed to enter the other length, and that happens. I have a trigger finger on my pinky where I accidentally hit the space bar. 7/8, And the other measurement it wants me to enter in is 8 inches. Now I could hit tab or I could hit comma. And so I hit tab, 8 inches, and there's my rectangle. And so this is 3 feet 10 7/8 inch by 8 inch rectangle. You could do the same with the other one that it's asking for. It's asking for another rectangle that's 3 inches, so REC. So 3 tab and 7 1/8 inch. And there's the other one. It's asking for one more, but I think you guys got the idea. Oh, it's talking about the padlock. You can lock that in. And so let's explore that. So 6 tab, and you'll notice that the padlock is right next to the 6. It's automatic. And I need 6 7/8 of an inch. So 6 7/8 of an inch. And there's my other rectangle. Now it's asking me to draw a circle. The keyboard command for circle is the letter C. Enter, and it will automatically. So here's circle. There's other ways to draw a circle. The most common way is center radius, and it kind of just goes from this center point. And you know, as you can see right here in the little diagram. And I specify my first circle, and I need to specify the radius. And this radius is 1 foot 6 5/8 inch. 6 5/8 inch. And there you have it. Now I've drawn a circle. And if I go to the properties, it'll tell me the radius and diameter. It'll also tell me the area. And so the radius, 1 foot 6 5/8 inch. Diameter, 3 feet 1 1/4 inch. Go to the rectangle. You can get area and square inches and square feet, and it'll give you the length of the longest side. So I can also right click over here and hit auto hide. And so when I'm not using that, it goes away. If I need it, it's right there. And that's useful so you can have a lot of surface area to work with. Okay, let's see, what else? Okay, so that's all we need for this drawing. Let me go ahead and clean some of this up. Delete, move, and go ahead and save this drawing. So Control Shift S, save as. Let's go back. And assignments, and this is 2-1. Hit save. I'm going to replace it. I did this before. And don't forget to plot this into a PDF. Now for Mac, this is a little different. There is a little PDF drop-down menu. You can click on that. You'll select any printer and then select Save as PDF, and it'll plot to PDF. But for PC, you can, if you don't have Adobe, you can use the AutoCAD PDF. I would just go with the general documentation. Don't go for high quality. You're submitting this online, and these file size might eventually get too big. So just right now, just get in the habit of general documentation, and hit center plot, fit to paper, and then we can preview, and that's what it looks like. I can right click and exit. I can also use window if I want to make sure I get everything. Preview, and yep, that's about right. So this says produced by an Autodesk student version. You will get that because this is a student version. And right click on the screen, hit plot, and you'll save this as a PDF anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and save this to AutoCAD, assignments, and save. Go ahead and replace that, and there you go. That's it. Go ahead and submit both the PDF and AutoCAD file for this assignment.